get started. So anybody else can still join if they want to. So we have got myself, Sarah, and I'm in marketing here at CaminoWays. And if you have watched one of our webinars before, you've probably seen my face. And joining me tonight is my colleague, Savannah, who you won't have met before. But Savannah, if you'd like to say hi and introduce yourself a little bit.
Hello, everyone. My name's Savannah. I've been with CaminoWays for about a year now. I'm a travel consultant, able to help everyone with all of their tours and any needs that they have for walking the Camino. I have an extensive background on adventure tourism and hiking and outdoors, so I'm able to assist in all plannings for a long walk like the Camino.
Perfect. Great stuff. Thanks, Savannah. So we're going to take you through a little presentation about where to start your Camino. And then, of course, if you have any questions, as usual, pop them in the chat box, or at the end, you can unmute yourself as well. If we don't get to all the questions, I will put an email address there or Facebook, and you can contact me and I will reply to you tomorrow as well. So don't worry about that. So just a plan of action. We're going to have a little bit, Savannah's going to tell you a little bit about what we do here at CaminoWays. And then we're going to look at some of the top Camino starting points. I saw Karen already said that she's starting this May, so she already probably knows her starting point. But for some of you, maybe in the earlier stages of planning, perhaps you're not quite sure about where you want to start your Camino from yet. So yeah, Savannah, if you want to tell us a little bit about what we do here at CaminoWays.
Yeah, absolutely. So at CaminoWays, we've been organizing Camino tours for over 13 years. We have a great team to help you plan your walk. So that's exactly what we do. We do walking and cycling tours of the Camino de Santiago. That includes all routes that end in Santiago de Compostela, as well as the Via Francigena, and we'll be covering those routes today. So we do guided and self-guided. So guided tours are with a guide that you'll be walking with a group of up to 20 people, whereas self-guided means you'll be walking on your own, navigating the Camino Trail, meeting pilgrims along the way. And then we also offer accommodations as part of our itineraries, and those accommodations can range anywhere from basic accommodations to 5-star plus, and that would be on each stage of the Camino route. And along with that, our most popular feature that we have is our luggage transfers. So that means that instead of carrying a heavy load during your walk, we will take your bags from the hotel each morning and bring them to the next accommodation while you're walking. And then lastly, we have our 24/7 customer assistance line. And this is wonderful for people when they have any questions about their hotels or route. We're always available to help you at any time of day.
That's great. Thank you. And just a note on the assistance phone, obviously, if you've been here before, you will have heard us talk about it. It is primarily for issues that arise during your trip, like your accommodation or your luggage transfer being delayed. It's not for an emergency. For example, if you fall and injure yourself, then you will obviously, wherever you're traveling, always contact the emergency services. And for Europe, that number is 112. So yeah, then Savannah, if you want to just take us through some of the main routes that you can see on this map here.
Exactly. So this here is a map of Spain, Portugal, and northern France. And the larger the name, the most popular the route is. So we're going to start with the Camino Frances. Traditionally, people start this in Saint-Jean-Pied-de-Port, which is the full route, which takes about 35 days to walk. And along this route, you get to stop in some amazing towns such as Logroño, Burgos, Leon, Ponferrada, Sarria, and then Santiago de Compostela would be the ending point. A lot of people, if it's your first time walking the Camino, will start in Sarria and walk the last 100 kilometers, ending in Santiago de Compostela, as it's a great introductory walk to see everything that the Camino has to offer and what to expect out of some of the other routes. The second most popular route is the Camino Portuguese, which starts in Lisbon, although most pilgrims tend to start in Porto, which is up in northern Portugal, and walk the coastal route inland towards Santiago de Compostela. The next route that is also popular would be the Camino del Norte. This one's a little bit of a challenge as there's quite a bit of hill walking, but it's absolutely splendid and worth doing. And this starts in San Sebastian and follows along the Basque Country and the coast of northern Spain through places like Bilbao, Santander, Oviedo, all the way inland towards Santiago de Compostela. We also have the Camino Primitivo, which links up with the Camino del Norte, starting in Oviedo. This is a historical route that's been walked for many centuries now. And this here, you can either start in Oviedo or do the last 100 kilometers from Lugo to Santiago de Compostela. And then lastly, we have the Camino Inglés, which is also very popular, and it's been walked for a long time from people transporting from England and the British Isles and Ireland onwards to Ferrol, inland towards Santiago de Compostela. We also have the Via de la Plata, which starts in Seville, but we offer it from Orense, so the last 100 kilometers from Orense to Santiago. And then what's not shown on this map is the Via Francigena, which is a fantastic route in Italy that traditionally starts in Lucca and ends in Rome.
Great, thanks. Also not shown on the map is the Camino Finisterre. So if you are walking one of the other routes and you end in Santiago, a lot of people will decide to continue to Finisterre, which is the traditional, it was once thought to be the end of the world. So some pilgrims like to continue their walk out there, and it is the only route that starts in Santiago. So it's a nice little addition, especially if you do one of the shorter 100-kilometer sections as well. So that's also, I'm not sure why that's not on that map actually, but that is another option. It would take you here in Santiago, if you can see my mouse, I'm not sure, and then out to Cape Finisterre and onto Murcia as well. So we'll just take a look at some of the starting points. So the first three are our most, we'll say, the most common starting points. They're on the Camino Frances, which is the most popular route. Sarria is the starting point for the last 100 kilometers. If you are hoping to get a Compostela certificate when you get to Santiago, you need to walk at least the last 100 kilometers, which is why there's always a focus on the 100 kilometers. So if you're doing that on the Camino Frances, your starting point will be Sarria. It's quite a nice little town. It's the streets are decorated with flags. There's street art everywhere. It's quite a social town as well, with a lot of cafes and restaurants. So it is a great place to start, and you will often see many, many pilgrims there because, like I said, if you want the 100 kilometers, it is where you are going to be starting. If you are cycling the Camino, so quite a few people choose, maybe they might prefer to cycle rather than walk. And if you want the Compostela certificate, you need to cycle at least the last 200 kilometers. So if you just cycle the last 100 kilometers, you won't be eligible for the certificate. So that's why a lot of people might start in Ponferrada. And yeah, so it's ideal if you want to cycle. Obviously, you can walk the 200 kilometers as well, but it's just important to note that if you are after the certificate, Ponferrada is a good place to start. And it has the medieval Templars castle, which was originally built to protect pilgrims on their route. And I think, Savannah, you had an interesting fact about the name Ponferrada.
That's right. So Ponferrada was founded in the 11th century by Bishop Osmundo. And during that time, he ordered that 2 bridges be made of iron to cross the rivers. And those bridges were made for the pilgrims to cross. And the town was actually named Ponferradas because of the 2 bridges that you would cross on your route on the Camino Frances.
Interesting. Thank you. So the main one, I suppose the key starting point, if you aren't doing the last 100 or 200 kilometers, and if you are planning to do the full Camino Frances, which is a good 800 kilometers, so it is a challenge, you would be starting at Saint John Pied de Port, which is at the foot of the Pyrenees. And it is the traditional beginning of the Camino Frances. You get about 33,000 pilgrims starting here every year. It's not as popular as the Sarria section, but if you are hoping to do the first part of the Camino Frances, or like I said, the complete route, which would be, I think, 35 days roughly of walking nonstop, you would be starting in Saint John Pied de Port as well. And as you can see from the picture, it is a lovely medieval town with cobble streets, which is very French. But yeah, Savannah, did you have anything that you wanted to say about St. John? Savannah's a bit of a name wizard. She likes all the meanings of the names.
Yeah, so Saint Jean Pied de Port, as Sarah mentioned, starts at the base of the Pyrenees Mountains. And Pied de Port means foot pass, and St. John would be St. James. So it is the foot pass of St. James.
Lovely. Okay, so Savannah, do you want to tell us a little bit about Oviedo?
Yeah, absolutely. So Oviedo is the start of the Camino Primitivo. So it would be 300 kilometers from Santiago to Compostela. Now, the cathedral is an important pilgrim destination. There's actually unique facts. So when you're at the cathedral, you'll see the various archways. And one of the archways is angled in such a way that during the time pilgrims would go and stand at the archway, and where their back was faced to would point towards the direction of Santiago de Compostela, helping you get started on your journey. And that's a really important start.
Great. And it's also the cider capital of Spain, which is always a good thing after a long day of walking. A nice cider will send you on your way. And then we also have Ferrol on the Camino Ingles.
Yeah, so Ferrol is the starting point of the Camino Inglés. It's located in northern Spain by the Atlantic coast. As I mentioned earlier, it's an important starting point for a lot of pilgrims back in the day when they would travel via boat from either the UK, Northern Europe, or Ireland. And they would arrive there and walk the 119 kilometers to Santiago de Compostela.
Okay, great. And actually, Ferrol, sorry, pronunciation. It is quite famous for its Easter celebrations. If you've ever seen pictures of Seville and all the traditional attire and parades that they have in Spain, Ferrol is a really good place to experience these kind of Easter celebrations. Obviously, it's too late to experience them this year, but if it's something that you'd be interested in, you could think about it for Easter next year. And also the other starting point of the Camino Ingles is A Coruña, but that's less than 100 kilometers from Santiago. So again, if you were hoping to get your Compostela certificate, you'd prefer to start in Ferrol, unless some people that do the A Coruña, the Celtic Camino, they maybe do a section of the walk in the UK or Ireland first, and then they can continue and build up their 100 kilometers throughout the entire route. So it's a little bit more complicated, but it is possible to start from A Coruña. But if you start from Ferrol, you will do the 100 kilometers necessary as well for Santiago. And if you ever have questions, oh, no, sorry, my bad, I skipped one. So we have San Sebastian next. So that is along the Camino del Norte. This is a more challenging route, and not a lot of people, if it's their first Camino, go on the Camino del Norte. The most popular section is from San Sebastian to Bilbao. And San Sebastian is a bit of a food capital of Europe. So if you're very into your food and your seafood, it would be a nice idea to maybe arrive in San Sebastian a day or two early, explore the city and everything it has to offer before walking the section to Bilbao as well. And then our last one, a city I have a big love for, and I think Savannah is the same, is Porto. So Porto is actually a UNESCO World Heritage City. It is on the Camino Portuguese coastal, and it is one of the main starting points. As I believe Savannah said earlier, it does start in Lisbon, but a lot of people choose to start in Porto. It is famous for port wine, but also the architecture is stunning everywhere you go. You could happily spend a few days in Porto before even getting the metro out to the coast to begin your coastal walk then. And I think, Savannah, you said something interesting about Porto earlier. You want to?
Yeah, so Porto is known for its 6 bridges. So similar to Ponferrada being famous for its bridges, Porto is known for its 6, as it's located on the Douro River. So if you're choosing to spend an extra day in Porto, I recommend taking a boat tour of the river to see the 6 bridges, or just strolling along the River Douro so you can stop at all of the shops and restaurants and cafes along the way. It really is a magnificent town. Additionally, starting in Porto is a great way to get introduced to walking the Camino, as the Camino Portuguese is less strenuous than some of the other routes. It takes about 14 days to walk from Porto to Santiago de Compostela, so that's just 2 weeks. And then if you were looking to walk the last 100 kilometers of the coastal route starting in Vigo, that would take you about 1 week from Vigo to Santiago de Compostela, and still getting to enjoy quite a bit of coastline.
Okay, Great, thank you. So obviously we'll answer a few questions now I've seen some are popping up in the chat box, but if you have questions at any other stage or if we run out of time today, you can email info@CaminoWays.com, or I'll pop it in the chat box. You can also email marketing@CaminoWays.com, which gets directly to me. And you can also contact us on social media as well. Like, you will be answered as well. So don't worry about that. But I'm just going to stop sharing the screen now. And if you have any questions, do pop them in. So I'm just after seeing a user Samsung. The recording will be shared. Don't worry, it's recording now, and it will be on our YouTube channel tomorrow, and I'll also be sharing it on our social media as well. And then how far is the hotel from bus stop out of Madrid? So have you booked a trip already, Andrada, or do you know where your hotel is? Usually we like to look at Rome to Rio for, if you're getting an overnight bus, it could be the company Flixbus, or possibly you're getting a Renfa. So it could be one of those, but I'll send you the link for Rome to Rio now, and then but yeah, once you know your hotel, you'll be able to figure out where the actual stop is. And the metro out of Porto. Yeah, so there's a route, I think it's route number 3, but from all of the main stops within the city, it actually says like coast on it. So we do have something on the website for that, but yeah, can look it up. It's very straightforward. It's literally, you get on the little tram and it takes you the whole way out to the coast, and then you hop off, and then you just, I think it's about a 10, I should know this, I did it last summer, about
Yeah, it's
15
a
minutes.
10-minute tram ride, and you would go from Porto to Matosinhos, and that is the start of the Camino Portuguese Coastal. And that's where you would begin your walk.
Perfect. That is great. Savannah, I might let Savannah take a few of the, we've got a direct message in. So someone is doing the Camino Portuguese Coastal, 60 days from Porto, but cycling. Are the bikes in good condition, and are you always available once on pilgrimage? As in, are we always available? Like the WhatsApp, that is always available. Yes. Make sure. Can we start planning the trip this early if we wanted to go next year during Holy Week? Savannah, can they start planning?
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of people begin their planning a year in advance, just because it's a long journey to take and to prepare your body and mind and get the whole package set up for you. And you can start planning at any time. We just require 3 weeks notice from the start date of your journey.
Yeah, but obviously if you know the dates that you want to travel, the sooner the better, just because especially after the pandemic, the accommodations fill up quite fast. Oh yeah, Alsa buses. Yeah, they're really good actually. They've got bathrooms and comfy chairs and everything. I took a 12-hour trip on one of those buses before, so they're a good option. Do we check in once Porto, or does it represent, is that a guided tour or a self-guided tour? So if it's self-guided, you can actually, Savannah can tell you what happens when you land in Porto.
So when it's self-guided, you can choose to have a representative meet you at the airport as part of an airport transfer and drive you to your first accommodation. Other than that, you would check in at the hotel listed on your holiday pack, and from there, reception will help guide you to your room, and you would begin the walk the following day. And then for our guided tours, you would be meeting our guide at the hotel, and you would spend the night there, discuss the route for the following day, and begin the walk.
Perfect. What happens if there is a delay in the flight or the connection? Savannah.
So our airport transfer team has your flight code and details. So they'll be able to see if there's any delay with your flight, and they will stay until you arrive. And then otherwise, there's no specific time for check-in in hotels. So even if you're not requiring an airport transfer, we accept check-in at any time.
Okay, perfect. And I've just put in a link for there was a question about the Camino to Finisterre. The link to the product page there. So it's about 90 kilometers and you can do it in about 5 nights. So if you have a self-guided tour with a hotel and luggage transfer and you love a city you can stop in, can you stay an extra day, and how would that work?
Yeah, so we ask that you have all of the dates, and if you wanted rest days or to plan an extra day on your trip, plan before payment is submitted. So we book all your hotels right as soon as we receive confirmation. And so you can't add an extra night while on journey, as all of your reservations for the rest of your trip have already been booked. So if you wanted to talk to one of us and for us to provide recommendations on where we say a rest day would be suitable, you can let us know and we're happy to give that to you.
Okay. Where do you get a bridge tour in Porto? Is this the bridge tour you mentioned, Savannah? Do you know?
Yeah, so I believe you can book online or when you arrive in Porto. So there's many different companies that provide bridge tours. It's just something to do if you were going to be in Porto and having an extra day or two.
Yeah. Another nice thing to do in Porto is to just along the, what you call the promenade, there's a lot of little cafes and restaurants. It's a nice place to sort of sit and people watch. If you are going to Porto in the height of summer, though, I might not recommend doing a lot of walking along the bridges because it's very hilly and it's very sweaty. Speaking from personal experience, it can be a bit tricky walking up and down all the hills and the bridges as well. What type of bathroom facilities are there along the way?
So when you're en route, depending on the route that you're in, you'll be passing through small towns. And when there, you can stop at cafes or restaurants to use the restroom facilities, or they may have public restrooms available. And then I see a question of, can you refill water bottles or do you have to buy bottles of water? You can refill water bottles. It'd be the same thing as restaurants. So when you arrive in those small towns, you can stop at a restroom or a cafe and they would be happy to fill up your water bottle for you.
Great. Thank you. um, that's great. Does anybody else have any other questions? We have a few minutes left if you have any. I have put in our email addresses, info@CaminoWays.com or marketing@CaminoWays.com. So if you think of a question later, feel free, please do email and I can get back to you tomorrow morning. Or also if you want to contact our social media. What is the best food to try in Porto? I feel like we've really shared our love of Porto here. But for me, I really enjoyed I like the lighter things. So there is a really famous dish there called, I think it's begins with an F, maybe Savannah, you know, it's like the France's, it's a really like meaty, heavy dish. It wouldn't be my
Yes.
favorite, but I think it's because I was there in the summer, so I preferred the lighter things. But a lot of the seafood there would be my choice. The cod was really good.
Yeah, I would recommend bacalhau, which is their famous cod dish. Of course, a glass of port wine after dinner, or any pastéis de nata, which is a famous Portuguese pastry. It's like an egg tart.
Mhm. As a first timer, which is the first Camino way to try first?
I would recommend either the Camino Francis last 100 kilometers or the Camino Portuguese last 100 kilometers.
Perfect. For the elderly, do you have a transport waiting close by if they cannot continue the walk?
So we recommend that you ask at reception at your hotel to provide you with the local taxi number, or you can message our 24/7 customer assistance line and we would provide you with a local taxi number to help get you to your next destination if you feel unable to walk.
So there's something, what would be a budget amount for the cost of that first trip? Roughly. We have actually, I'll put a link in, we have a Camino planner, so you can customize, like you can add or subtract, like you don't have to add dinners or you don't have to add luggage transfers or airport transfers. So if you're on a bit more of a budget, you can subtract some of these other items. In some of the reviews, there are a few complaints about the hotels being further out in the country that you need to continue walking to. So usually for all of those hotels that are a little bit off the trail, we do provide a transfer, or the accommodation provides a transfer to that. So you wouldn't usually have to walk an extra, 10 kilometers just to get to your hotel. Going back to Madrid from Santiago, I know there's a transfer. How can you tell which train to take? Right, I'm going to pop a link into Rome to Rio as well because it's really handy. We use it as well. You basically put in your departure and then your destination. So you put Santiago, Madrid, and it gives you all the best options if you know your date and your time that you would like to get it. That is just really handy for that as well. It's really useful. I'll just go get that link now. We have about 5 minutes left, so if there are any other questions, now is the chance to ask. Savannah, I think there's another question there if you want to take it.
Yeah, I see a question from Cheryl. So the Camino del Norte, curious about the level of difficulty if you are an experienced hiker. It is a difficult trail just because the distances can be long and it can be quite a bit of elevation gain and loss while going over a pass and heading into a coastal town. If you're an experienced hiker, I would say it would be a moderate trek.
Okay. Right, so I've just popped in the link to Rome to Rio. How's rain in September? The weather, as you are aware, is a bit all over the place. I would like to say the weather would be lovely in September, but it's getting harder every year to predict the temperatures. You would want to pack a rain jacket in case, I would say. And the link I've just popped in there now is the Camino planner. So for that, you can type in your ideal start destination and your ideal end destination. And you can put in if you want standard, superior, the kind of accommodation. This is just going back to the budget question. I would put in standard if you want to save on that, and then kind of remove the dinners or the luggage transfers if you are looking to do that as well. 3 more questions there. Best time to take the trip if you're heat averse. Okay, as an Irish person, I'm very heat averse. So I would say, Savannah, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but probably October or maybe the April to May time before it gets too warm. Unless you're doing the coastal route, then June might be all right as well. But if you're very heat averse, I would avoid the summer at all costs. How tough is the cycling to O Cerebro? Cycling in general, if you're not an expert at cycling, if you're not a very experienced cyclist before you go on the Camino, we don't usually recommend that you cycle the Camino. Some of the distances, Savannah, they're about 40 kilometers a day. So they are quite long. And if you're doing that every day, if you're not used to that kind of cycling, you are going to find it quite tough. When do we need to book for a trip in September on the Camino Frances? Savannah, nowish even, or a bit later?
I would say you would want to start preparing and booking your trip between now and the end of May.
Yeah. So September and October is some of the most popular times to travel. So it does fill up, especially closer to Santiago. Porto Santiago in September, that would be lovely with the breeze as well. Good plan, Kim. Okay, we probably have time for one more question if there is one. If not, just a reminder, this is being recorded so you can watch back on YouTube tomorrow. And also, if you have more questions, please do email them. And you can even call as well, and Savannah and the other members of the team will be answering those phones. Can you describe the basic hotel?
Yeah, so our standard hotels are exactly that. They cover the basics of what you need. So they've got a comfortable bed, they're really clean, really welcoming hospitality, and they just cover what you need. So unlike a 4 or 5-star hotel, it might not be a massive room, but they're very clean and comfortable to stay in. And they all have private rooms with ensuite washrooms.
Yeah, so that is the main difference, really. Like if you were going and doing the hostel situation, you'd be sharing rooms and sharing bathrooms, and it's just to get a bit of privacy at the end of the day, which is great. Okay, I think our time is about to run out on the Zoom call. So thank you very much for joining us. And we just will answer this the last brief question. Is breakfast included, and what is it? And then we'll leave.
Yeah, so breakfast is included every night as part of accommodation in Spain, and it would just be a continental breakfast.
Okay, great. Perfect. And yeah, thank you all very much for joining, and I hope to see you again soon. I hope it answers some of your questions and helps with a bit of clarity. But again, do get in touch if you have any questions in the future. And I hope that your planning for your Camino goes really well. Thank you all very much.
Thank you so much. We look forward to hearing from you.